Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. If you desire to intimately connect with yourself, significant other, children, family, friends, community, and higher power, then this is the show for you. We explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spirituality, and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. The show is hosted by Dr. April and her co-host, Coach K. Let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back show started. We share with you today the secret power to intimacy to create the life you love or love the life you create. Now here's your host, Dr. April, and her co-host, Coach K.
Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. Welcome, everyone. I'm sorry to say that Coach K is not able to be here today, but we have a wonderful show today where we're talking about intimacy is a trust. Is it a trust fall? So when we talk about intimacy, one of the things that I really try to hope you guys are gaining from this show is that intimacy is involved in so many aspects of our lives. Because to be truly intimate, even to be truly intimate in this moment, we have to be fully present. And that is so hard, especially as busy people. And even in the summertime, which I hope that most of you guys are in that mode of summertime right now, where you may not have the school issue, but it's like running around, bringing your kids to all the different activities, having family come visit. And we also have, of course, the upcoming holidays of the summer. So we get so busy, but sometimes we struggle in just being in the present moment. So if you're right now just struggling being in the present moment, just take a breath, really feel your body, really try to slow down your mind so you can truly be present, because that is what I say is what all the sciences come to, is being fully present. And so when we do that, that's how we can really experience an intimate moment. So we're going to really dive deep into intimacy today. But before we get there, the month of June, which is what I meant to say, is also a month where we talk about and also deal with and support resources that deal with trauma. Because trauma is so critical. And I know this show's about intimacy, and sometimes you may say, what about intimacy and trauma? But when you've had trauma, whether it's trauma from childhood, trauma from things that have happened with a variety of things, fires, death, even, getting arrested, or even traumas in the sense of losing a kid or breaking up in a marriage, it can steal that intimacy that you're looking for, because trauma takes you out of the present moment. So the charity of the month that we're supporting is the Trauma Survivors Foundation. It's a great organization that helps survivors who are dealing with trauma get healing. So definitely think about that and think about supporting it. So we're going to take a small break, but when we come back, we have a specialist. That's what I meant, a specialist. His guest name is Roman, and Roman is going to help us understand more about intimacy. And as I said earlier, it's intimacy. Is it a trust fall? All right, we'll be back in a moment.
Are you wanting a vacation in paradise? Vacation to reignite the passion, the desire in your relationship? Vacation counseling is just for you. We are deeply committed to your success as a couple. Our couples counseling retreats are exclusive, effective, and intimate. At Vacation Counseling, you will benefit from a combination of couples counseling, intimacy counseling, and individual counseling while you and your partner enjoy a relaxing vacation in sunny Southwest Florida. If you are interested in vacation counseling, please visit us at vacationcounseling.com for more information on prices and packages.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. Welcome, Roman Wyden. How are you doing?
Hey, thank you, Dr. April, for having me. It's a pleasure being here. I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So let me introduce you. So you're Swiss born,
Hmm.
yes, real estate entrepreneur, award-winning filmmaker, and I believe an actor too, right?
Previously, yeah.
Yes, okay. Yes, and a life coach and an author. And over the years, he's built a successful career in directing films and being certified conscious parenting coaching. And he hosts two popular podcasts, which looks at the role of experts in relationship, ADHD, addictions, mental health, intimacy, and parenting. Yeah, so you have a plethora of talents and skills.
Yes, that's true. I'm definitely a jack of all trades, and I follow my interests as they show up in life, you know. And you said the most, the three key words that are most important, I think, is being present, intimacy, and then there's trauma, right? And we can talk about how they're all affected by each other. But it's so great to be here because those are such important topics.
Yes, definitely. And if you're out there on social media, please follow us or ask questions because one of the main questions I'm going to ask Roman is, Roman, how do you define intimacy?
Love it, you know, and I've asked this question so many people in my intimacy, in my podcast called You Love Life, which was about intimacy, love, relationships, and so forth. And the answer is always different, but I think the one that keeps showing up, and you've heard this before, is the into me you see, right?
Hmm.
And so I personally go off of that concept and say that when I allow others to see me fully in any given moment, there's intimacy that's being created. The moment I start to hold back part of me, like hold my cards close to my chest, and I don't reveal who I really am, I'm scared, I'm embarrassed, whatever it is, there's less intimacy present, right? And so, in a way, we can create it anytime, anywhere with anyone. It's just, you know, can be scary. It takes courage, right?
Hmm. And I think, especially, great to have you as a man talking about it because it's something that we aren't really taught growing up. And especially, we don't teach our boys about truly being intimate. Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
parents do that at all. Yeah.
No, you're right. I think that a lot of concepts are not taught. We don't teach what love is, what relationships are, like how to start them, how to maintain them, how to complete them successfully or healthy, right? And especially intimacy, because I think when we hear intimacy, most parents shy away from digging deeper because what they hear is some kind of physical, sexual thing and
Right.
we're just like, oh, it's kind of taboo, or it's too soon, or it's whatever. But that's not what intimacy is. I mean, there's sex, there's love, there's sensuality, which also doesn't have to be sexual because we're using
Mhm.
all our senses, right? Or one, or all, or some. But you know, intimacy. Uh, you know, I've seen intimacy between like a high schooler and a senior citizen. I used to run a program where we took teenagers to senior citizen homes and we paired them up as like pay pals or as like hangout pals. And I've seen more intimacy there than I see in some marriages, you know,
Mhm.
because it's not love, it's not sex, it's not the romantic desire. It truly is just two human beings like letting down the guards and just connecting. Age doesn't matter, sex doesn't matter, race doesn't matter. You're just with a human and you're fully open, right, and available. So
Mhm. And in our title of today's show, we're talking about trust also. And when I think
trust.
about
Yeah.
intimacy, it is trusting ourselves and trusting, the
Yes.
people that are around us. Yeah, but that is so hard for many people.
It's hard. That's why I call it a trust fall because truly, you know, everything goes back to first having intimacy with ourselves. Anything like respect, love, intimacy, it's first with ourselves. Because if we don't have it with ourselves, then we can't have it with another. We can have sort of an artificial, temporary,
Right.
shaky version of it. But when I trust myself that no matter like where I'm at in life, right? Roman, right now in this moment with you,
Right.
if I had to reveal everything that who I am right now with you in
Right.
order to create intimacy, then I have to trust myself that I'm going to be okay. that even if you abandon me or you leave me or you don't like me or you judge me, that I'm still okay. And that's the real trust fall, right? To really go, here's who I am, here's everything. I hope you still love me, right? That's the scary part, you know?
Right. And so, Roman, I was just thinking, because my daughter's much older, right? I have a 29-year-old. That part right there is not even taught to kids,
No, no. And
which is it's it's so important.
very
Yeah,
important. And I'm still learning. I'm 54 and I'm
right,
still learning it, you know.
right,
I'm still a toddler when it comes to creating intimacy or being vulnerable, having transparency in the relationship. I'm in a beautiful new relationship right now where transparency is our key word.
right,
And it doesn't mean you spill everything all the time and you dump it into the space, but it really is about sharing uncomfortable feelings, sharing truths, sharing
right.
needs, setting boundaries. No one teaches that. I mean, there's workshops for adults, but this has to be in starting, I think, in middle school, like even late elementary, middle school, definitely in high school. I mean, it has
Right.
to be there, you know?
Right, right. Before we move on, what is one advice you could give someone who's like, I have a hard time trusting myself because I think sometimes people think about their past and what they've done or haven't done,
Yeah.
and they kind of hold that over their head. You know what I'm saying?
Or they punish themselves with it, right?
Yes, yes, they rip it. Yes.
They rip it. Well, it's a simple metaphor is it's a muscle. It's a flabby
Mm,
muscle because we haven't been taught it, right?
right,
How to work it out. So the best way to create trust with yourself and ultimately with others is to start um, making promises to yourself, like having certain goals and write down daily things. They could be small things, like today I'm going to go wash my car. Now you're thinking, what does it have to do with trust? Well, if you start trusting yourself that you actually did
mm,
what you said, right? You're building that muscle. Or another metaphor is you're making a deposit into the trust account that is Roman does what Roman says. So we're
right.
getting into integrity, but really, and it's the same with if you take on bigger things where I trust myself. If I promise somebody I'm going to show up to their barbecue and I said I'm going to be there unless there's an emergency, I'm there, right? Or if somebody says, "Can you keep a secret?" and you go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, you can trust me," but then you don't, you always know, right, that you
Right,
lied or that you're hiding or that you're cheating.
right.
So you can't trust yourself if you're keeping secrets and if you're not showing up and training that muscle of being in integrity. And eventually you'll know yourself as somebody that you can trust. And that's how trusting yourself starts.
I love how the one little simple thing is to make a little goal, stick to your goal for yourself, and be honest and
Yeah.
authentic with yourself. And that builds trust. Yes.
Yeah,
And so
and
we
start small.
start
Yeah.
small. Yes, definitely. So now we talked about trust with self, and then it's trust with others to create that intimacy bond.
Yeah. So here's the tricky part. So one thing I've recently read and love, which is there's a book called Intimacy by Osho, the philosopher, and he talks about how love is by nature insecure. There's no security. When you have true love, there's no security because true love is unpredictable. If you're just being loving, which means you accept someone or a circumstance in that moment for what it is and for who they are without trying to control and manipulate, that's love. But that's unpredictable, that's
Right.
uncertain. And uncertainty creates almost insecurity. It's not secure. So it's one of those like, what do you call it? It's not a chicken or the egg, but it's a paradox. It's like we all want love, but we want it to be controlled and we want it to be available. What we don't want it to ever leave us, and we want it this way, and we want it with that person now. That's not love, right? So
Mhm.
it's hard to trust someone that, I enter the relationship. This has now been 3 months. And I have to tell myself, like, I'm opening my heart. I'm trusting that this human being has my best interest, also at heart and mind. And I'm going to move forward. And if I open my heart and if I'm going to get hurt, then there's going to be growth. It's going to suck. But I can't grow unless I trust someone, of course, that I have intuitively evaluate it as a good partner, right? So that's a whole nother story. But there's almost no guarantee. When we want to trust someone, we have to again trust our own intuition that they're going to have our best interest at heart, and then we just got to open up the heart and go in, you know.
Right. It's that unconditional
Yes,
love
yes,
because yeah, because you can't like love someone and then expect, hey, that they're gonna love me back equally at the same amount. Yeah, that's transactional.
exactly. Yep, that's the word I always use too. Transactional. Then it's not love. It's business.
Right. And when it comes to that intimacy of just being able to open up and being vulnerable.
That's the scary part, right?
Right.
So I've learned that, there's so many YouTube videos of saying men shouldn't be like this, they should be like this, they should not chase women, women should not do this, men should. It's nauseating. And I think what they're,
Yes, exactly.
yeah, I mean, I think what most of them are missing, I don't want to say all, I don't know every single coach or video creator on YouTube, but what I think a lot of them are missing is that when you've done a lot of work on yourself, when you've
Hmm.
done learning to trust yourself, learning to respect yourself, setting boundaries, right? Stating your needs, not staying in relationships that are toxic for too long because you're afraid to be alone, right? Any
Right.
of those, if you really do that work, then eventually you meet a person and you have your intuition calibrated and you go, I think this will be good. And this, I always say, this will be a good teacher, right?
Hmm.
Teachers can be firm, they can teach you lessons, they can kick you out of class, out of the university. But if you have a good teacher, you're gonna grow. And
Right.
growth is kind of what, the ultimate outcome. If why be in a relationship, in a loving relationship if there's no growth? That's gonna be
Exactly.
not fulfilling, right? And so to be with someone and say, I trust myself to know that this is a good teacher, this is a good partner that I can grow with, then there's still no guarantee, but then you open up and you just kind of take that trust fall, that first step off the cliff. There's that scene in Indiana Jones, one of them, where he steps over the whatever cliff thing, and the floors appear the boards appear one at a time as he steps.
Right.
And it's kind of like that. Yeah,
Right, because it's sometimes it's the unseen and you've got to have the faith to, hey,
totally.
I'm following, yeah, and I keep going and I keep going. Yeah. And like you said, it can be fearful in some aspect, but you have to get over that and be open. And if you
Yeah.
trust your instincts, and I love how you say that it's growth because sometimes people get stuck in, I had this bad relationship, I had this bad, but in all those relationships, you grow.
Yes, yes. And one of my favorite sayings now is that hearts don't break because the heart is a muscle, so it
Right.
can't break. But we say, well, it's a metaphor. No, but really, if we look at it, what we can break, or what is actually breaking when we're like in heartbreak, are the walls around the heart that we've built. Those
Mm,
are breaking down, and those need to break down. So it's painful, but the growth is to free the heart, right? To
right.
take those walls off, and that feels like heartbreaking. And so I always look at that when I'm in a heartbreak kind of space. I go like, it's okay, like it hurts, but I'm breaking down the walls so there can be more love, right, from inside out.
Right. Because when you're truly intimate, how can I put it? It's just that feeling of, for me, it's a feeling of peace, of being authentic, just being completely real. And I can truly see the person and feel like I'm being seen.
Hmm. Yes,
When that,
I
yes.
can relate to in my current relationship. I've never been so fully seen. I've never felt
Awesome.
so fully like acknowledged and uh, admired, celebrated. Right? Those are big things. When I have that as feedback, it's easier for me to open up and go, well, seems like you like all of me or what I've shared so far. And I'm a very open person. So there's no fear of like you're not going to like this part of me, right? I'm going
Right.
to be needy sometimes. Like I'm a man, but I'm going to feel like I'm a 7-year-old boy sometimes and be
Yes.
needy and
Yes.
miss you. And I just wish I was with you instead of working. Like I get that way sometimes still, but that's my own, fear of abandonment, my attachment,
Hmm.
all the traumas we have as in our childhood that creates this sort of anxious attachment or avoidant, whatever the style is. And I'm aware of that, so I can say, "Hey, today I'm being needy,"
Right, right,
and my partner says, "It's okay. I get that way too. So let's, you want a hug or you need
right.
to be left alone?" Or, and the next day we go back and we say, I feel great today. Oh, me too. Great. So you kind of move through these spaces honestly, you know.
Right, right. And I love that being authentic. So yeah, and I
Mhm.
definitely can understand. I'm in a new relationship or I'm engaged, getting married soon. And
Oh,
and
congratulations.
it's yeah, yeah. So it's so
Mhm.
exciting. But it's like you said, knowing yourself and being able to even say your weaknesses, but not having that person try to heal you, but saying, hey, this is my weakness. This is what I am right now. I understand. And sometimes it's women, I can even understand when I'm being irrational. And I'll say it. I know it. Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's the greatest thing I recently realized, and for some of you that's going to be like a duh, like I know that, and I thought I knew it too, but I really got it at the core, is that when I'm being needy or insecure or uh, anxious, right, and I tell my partner, then she knows where I'm at, who I am. And she
Right.
gets to make a choice. She gets to say, that's a little too much for me right now in my life. I'm going to move on. Or she gets to say, hey, there's so much working. Those things will work together, right?
Right.
But I think, and again, a lot of the videos we see out there, the content is like, men, don't show women when you're insecure or when you're anxious. Don't talk,
Mm,
it's like, why not?
right.
Because if they leave, they leave. I mean,
Right.
I call this control. They're trying to control themselves so they can control the women to stay with them. And then they think that's like a healthy relationship. But I just say, I mean, maybe I'm extreme. Is put it all out on the platter. Here's me and my shadows. Here's all of me, so they get to choose. They get to stay or leave.
Right. And that's women in research has shown, especially for intimacy, that emotional intimacy, it's critical.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that's Sexual intimacy is simply what I call a celebration of having emotional intimacy.
Hmm.
If you don't have emotional intimacy, but you have sexual intimacy, then you just have physical exchange. And I think one of my friends puts it in a more crass way, and I'll use different words to be PC, but he says then you're just two bodies using each other to have a good time, right?
Right.
There's no emotional intimacy. And that's fine if that's your thing. Good luck with that. But emotional intimacy creates this amazing foundation that I'm exploring right now with my partner. And it's so beautiful. And then the sexual intimacy is truly a celebration and an expansion of that, like being celebrated and feeling free and open and truly body open, right? But most of us do not open up physically
Right.
if there's not an emotional intimacy, and rightly so, right?
Right. Right. Definitely. And the thing sometimes from our past, like you said, trauma can block it, you know?
Yeah.
But there's also a variety of even mental health things or even work things that can sometimes block people from being truly intimate in many different
Yes.
ways.
Yeah. The key word is trauma, right? I always have to remember I speak from a place of having done a lot of work myself and still doing a lot of work and continue to, and having coached people and also having coaches myself, right? I have a
Right.
therapist, I have a coach. And so I often have to remind myself that uh, when someone hasn't done a lot of work to process and heal trauma, those childhood wounds, right, that are still kind of open, then it's very hard to follow any of the advice or any of the thoughts you and I share here because you go, yeah, but when this happens, I'm triggered and I'm hijacked and I can't even go
Right.
there. It's like, I get it. I get it. So the advice is again to work with a therapist or get into programs that deal with processing and healing childhood trauma. I know there's a lot of abuse. It's sad how
Mhm.
many, not just women, but like I'll just speak as a man, how many women I talk to that had sexual or physical abuse in their childhood. That all affects sexuality. That all affects connecting and being intimate and emotional, like feeling safe to share your emotions, right? So trauma is a big one. It's probably the the big T is like, it's in the room. It's the elephant, and unless we address it, unless we do the work, it's always going to come and hijack us in any
Mhm.
relationship.
Right. And I try to remind people, or especially do a lot of couples work, that we each are responsible for our own mental health.
Yeah.
It's not the partner's job. Yeah.
Nope.
Nope.
Yeah, that's it.
It's our responsibility. Yes. Yeah.
I 100% agree. And also, your partner it's not their job to fulfill you in all areas. And I don't mean this the way some people hear it, like sexually or whatever, but
Right.
really, it's like you said, mental health is something we each got to work on, right? Physical
Hmm.
fitness is something we have to first be uh, healthy mentally, physically, spiritually, psychologically, like be okay with ourselves, within
Right.
ourselves, and then we can relate to the other person that hopefully is also doing the work and is also whole, and as whole as we can be at this point, right? We're always going to grow, but like healthy, and healthy can relate, right? But if it's unhealthy, unhealed, that's just going to cause toxic relationships. That's going to cause tension, divorce, frustration, heartbreak. And it's okay. We all go through it. But eventually I started to realize that, okay, I'm going to pick somebody who, and I'm lucky I have recently met somebody who's very similar to me, very like it's almost a reflection. We both have similar
Right.
tendency to be codependent or to have anxiety or to, similar childhood trauma, because now we can work through it together. Some people
Hmm.
believe trauma bonding doesn't work, and I wouldn't call this trauma bonding, but we have a shorthand. We can work on things together faster, you know.
Right. Definitely. Yes. Good. Good. And I do think also with intimacy, one of the other things that sometimes block it is we're so busy.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And to be truly intimate, you have to have energy and you have to be present. But
yeah,
sometimes we're busy. We run around so much. Yeah,
that's a big topic. I'm glad you brought that up. There is no intimacy without being present, right? And there is no
right,
presence when we're not in the present moment.
right.
And, I do a lot of work and research on ADHD, and I work with families that are neurodiverse or have neurodiverse children. And my goal is always to basically take the environment they're all in and reduce the amount of stress and
Mm,
bring the more calm and serenity into the household, because then the nervous systems will, for lack of a better term, slow down, co-regulate, and they can be more present. And now there's less frenetic, I don't want to be in this moment, I need to be over there. What's that?
right,
They're
right.
constantly television, social media, and those are not the causes, but it doesn't help. It doesn't, so my point is that, like, you brought it up, it's so beautiful, this topic of presence. Like, we can't be intimate if we can't be present.
Hmm. And I'm glad you mentioned that about all the different distractions. Because even
Yeah,
when families sit down for dinner, if there's like TVs, phones, 50 million things going around, or even if you're
yeah,
having a dinner with your significant other, or even slowly, even doing homework with your kid, having that intimate moment. When you've got all those distractions, your phone is ringing, this and that, you're missing that important piece.
yeah. And I'm also guilty of that sometimes. My kids have smartphones and they have their video games and they're chatting with their friends and all that stuff. And so as parents, we kind of try to like wedge in there and have a moment of intimacy and connect. And I always say, progress is better than perfection. Like,
Yes,
you're not going to
exactly.
be the perfect parents,
Right.
um, but just be aware of it. And like you said, there's so many distractions that we we almost train our brain, we wire our brain
Right.
to need those distractions to feel that we're okay, right? And that's the addiction part, right?
Right. Because if training, I have a 29-year-old, but trained her to be okay being by herself, being okay
Hmm.
being in silence. Because if not, then you go into a relationship and you're expecting all this pizzazz, all this and this and this and that. Yeah. Or you have a hard
That's
time.
great.
Yeah, you have a hard time in your 20s, 30s, or 40s, or 50s, and there are people 50s sitting by themselves.
Absolutely. That's a
Yeah.
huge, you know, for me, what helps is meditation because, again, meditation is bringing me
Mm,
back to the present moment. And I
right.
feel that I'm okay, that life is okay. And so, whatever you can do as a parent, right? And you're a great demonstration of that. You're
Right.
teaching your child that actually, if you can be okay by yourself, and I don't mean lonely or alone for the rest of your life, but
Right.
none of us really are if we think about it.
Right.
There's people around us all the time, unless you live in the middle of nowhere. You can't say, like, oh, I'm so alone. You may feel lonely, but that's a condition.
Right.
But so if we can train our kids to be okay to be alone and to not feel like they need other people or they need to be busy or need a distraction, I mean, you've just raised an amazing human being because that's going to be the skill that you can stand in the middle of in the eye of the hurricane, right? And you could just
Right.
be okay. Um, that's a skill we need with the world we have today. So,
Of course. Yes. So if people are out there listening and they want to hear and want to get to know more about you and your services, yeah, how can they find you? What services you provide? And tell us, of course, about the books.
yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. So, I wrote this book called Intimacy Is, and it's a book that sums up some of the interviews I've done. I've interviewed anyone from literally a sex researcher to married couples to um, a priest to Elon Musk's sister, who's a filmmaker, to a porn star. Like, I wanted to know what is sex, what is love, what is intimacy. So you can pick up the book on Amazon. Intimacy is. I'm reachable through Roman Wyden .com, just my first and last name .com. The ADHD project is called ADHD is over. It's also just ADHDisover.com. And basically, I call it now life coaching because I coach human beings, right? Even if it's relationship coaching, which I
Hmm.
do, it's coaching two individuals to restore them back to their true selves, like, them minus the secrets and minus the resentments, and they can relate again from this sort of clear, authentic way of being. So that's my relationship coaching. But even if I do families with ADHD, I usually coach the parents. And like I said, my coaching is all about bringing serenity back into the household or as much as we can, and also getting rid of addictions, you know, distractions, coping mechanisms that the family has in place. Because then the kids can co-regulate with their parents, their nervous systems. They can calm down if the parents calm down, right? And so
Hmm.
many of us are children of alcoholics, drug abuse, divorce, like other traumas that we mentioned earlier. And so the nervous systems are constantly buzzing, feeling unsafe. And when we can bring calm to that, which is a lot of my coaching, then the kids actually transform. And it's like magical. I can't explain it, but without any medication, right? Um, so I'm a big believer in that.
Yes. And I thank you so much for the work that you do, because how we build relationships is actually starts on where we saw growing up. That is the first language about relationships. And even if it's the most language that we don't like, if we don't learn anything different, that's what the language we're going to pass on to our kids. And so you provide an opportunity for parents to learn a different language about
Yep.
relationships and how they can help their kids. Because children will come out with a book, the kid is born. Yes, yes. And then you go back and do the stuff from your own parents. But you're providing, research, data, and information on how to truly, as a family and as oneself, be have these wonderful intimate connections. So I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. This work inspires me because if I can help others to go through what I went through. I come from a kind of a childhood where there wasn't a lot of affection, there was a lot of nurture because they just didn't know better. There was a lot of secrets, there was a lot of hiding, there's a lot of lying, um, there was a lot of cheating. So I naturally stepped into that and thought that was the way to be, right? And until I realized my own addictions and my own ways of being that are destructive, and I drew a line in the sand and I'm now doing that work. So helping others helps me in return. So it's my pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I really do appreciate it. This has been
My
the
pleasure.
Intimacy Back show. We'll be back in a moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Life can be overwhelming sometimes. We think we are a burden to others. We think that it's better to hide it and suppress our hurt, but it's not. As Cave Coral therapists, we will provide you with quality, confidential counseling services in a relaxing and peaceful environment. Talk to a professional today. Book an appointment on www.cavecoraltherapist.com or call 239-565-6921.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. That was just a wonderful presentation from Roman Wyden, how he talked about intimacy, and it is a trust fall, how we have to learn how to trust ourselves, and in trusting ourselves, understanding ourselves, and also being at the end, as we were talking about, being comfortable with self. And then also in that relationship with others. And we would, even at the end, we were talking about the importance of that intimacy in a family and how that is so critical for children, even for future generation. And so he is a great guy. Definitely check him out. Again, his website is www.romanwyden, Wyden is the spelling of his last name.com. Please check him out. So for the upcoming shows coming up, can't believe it's July already. Next week, we will have a rerun dealing with building relationship skills and with kids. And then on July 11th, we're going to be talking about how to nourish your preteen's potential. July 18th, we're going to talk about reviving intimacy, a spiritual journey. And then on the end of July, we're going to talk about your life and your rules. Definitely continue to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And we'll see you guys next week. This has been the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back, where intimacy is real. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Dr. April Brown's 7-book series, Improving Intimacy, is now on Amazon. We'll see you next Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe.